Welcome back to Nice and Blunt. I'm Adam Riancho, and these are my picks for Divisional Weekend, along with my wish list for the coaching vacancies in the NFL. So we'll go through all 4 games this weekend, then all 9 teams that have a coaching vacancy this season. So let us begin. First things first, this is my bracket from last week. I did not have a very effective prediction. We went 2-4, and I had the AFC completely wrong. I did feel like the AFC was the more up for grabs conference, but personal biases aside, some of these were probably unlikely. I just wanted it to happen, and nope, it did not. So we did not have a very good record last week, and maybe I just have no idea what's going to happen in the playoffs. But let's update it. That was my busted bracket. This is the correct bracket. These are the matchups that we are looking at this week in the playoffs. So let's go through every single game and tell you what I think will happen. Who knows? I might go 1-3 this time. Last week we were below 500. Hopefully it'll be better. But the first game of the weekend is the Broncos hosting the Bills, and I'm going to tell you right now, I believe the Bills will win. I trust Josh Allen. I know that the Broncos are entering this week with pretty much every advantage on their side. They got the week of rest. They have the home field. They have the altitude. They have the better coach, probably a better offensive game plan, more likely. They have the better defense and really the better record. They've proven to be the better team this year. But I just want to root for Josh Allen. I know that their team is banged up. He got banged up like crazy last week. He was definitely in pain. I thought there was a chance he came off the field, but obviously in the playoffs, someone like that not coming off the field. And I think he'll find a way. Both Bo Nix and Josh Allen are quarterbacks that are pretty much built to come from behind. And I just think Josh Allen with more experience will get the job done. Last year, the Bills beat the Broncos in the playoffs in the wildcard round. That game was in Buffalo, and it is possible this time is a different outcome. If we go back a couple of years when Russell Wilson was the quarterback for Denver, they did go into Buffalo and win a regular season game. It was a final field goal at the buzzer type of victory, and I believe it also involved a 12-man penalty on defense that set up that final field goal. So a lot of things had to break right for Buffalo to lose that time, and both teams are different. Definitely Denver is much better. So it wouldn't shock me at all if Denver did win, but I agree with the majority. 61% of y'all did answer the poll with Buffalo as your pick. Who would win this game? So not overwhelming. 60-40 isn't a massive gap, but definitely that is the side most of us are picking. So if I was going to bet this game, I would take the Bills and the points. I'd also just take Bills money line. That's a plus 100 return on investment. So definitely, if you trust them to win, I would just go Bills money line. But getting an extra 1.5, they are not favored in this game, but I think they'll win. I think they'll find a way. 27-24 is my prediction. I would hit the over on the point total, but I don't feel super confident on the over-under. I could see this game not go very well for the Bills offense, and if James Cook does not get rolling, I could see RJ Harvey be the difference maker. So I will take Josh Allen and the Bills. I think they have the better quarterback, and ultimately I'm kind of rooting for Allen at this point to win a Super Bowl. It's been quite a long time where he hasn't made it. I want to see it happen, and now that my Chargers are out, the redemption narrative for Rodgers is over, I think the team I want to win the AFC is Buffalo. So let's go with the Bills. I'm obviously not a Broncos fan. I'm a Charger fan. So I could see them win, but I'm not going to pick them. I'm going to take Buffalo. 27-24. The second game of the week is Seattle hosting San Francisco, and I believe the Seahawks will win 23-20. We've seen some very low scores in the 2 matchups this season between these 2 teams. To start off the year, week 1, the Niners barely won, and then the second time around in the final week of the season, last time we saw these Seahawks, they won pretty handily, 13-3. They did have a much better defense on display. So I could see a similar outcome, a very close game with a low score, but I think in these playoffs, the offensive game plan for both teams will be a bit extra on display and a little more effective than it has been. So I'm envisioning a little more scoring. Weather is not going to be a factor. It's going to be 51 degrees and sunny in Seattle on Saturday, so that's not going to be the detriment of the Niners. And I do think they have the better coaching staff, but just barely. I don't think that the Seahawks coaching is that much worse than Seattle. So with the home field advantage, with the rest, there's a world where Sam Darnold shits the bed, but they've been pretty effective this season against them, and I think their defense will step up. With no George Kittle, I think that's kind of a difference maker. And while I think the point spread is a little bit disrespectful, I don't think the Niners will overcome. I didn't trust the Eagles. That's why I picked the Niners to win last week, and I was correct. But ultimately, I trust the Seahawks a lot more than Philadelphia. We're not going to see anywhere near as many 3-and-outs from Darnold and the Seahawks. But turnovers could be a problem. We have seen the Seahawks prove, even when Darnold throws interceptions and turns it over, they can still find a way to win. So I will agree with the majority yet again. 68% of y'all did take Seattle, and last week that was the team I picked to win the Super Bowl. So I'm not going to go against that. I think the Seahawks are the better team, and while there's a chance for an upset, I'm not going to take it. The Niners are just a little too battered and lacking in terms of health. With no Fred Warner, he's practicing but not coming back. That, I think, will be the Achilles heel. Just don't trust the Niners enough. A close one, 23-20, but I'm going to trust the better kicker. I also think Jason Myers will be more effective than Eddie Pinheiro. Maybe that's not the case, but maybe a missed kick does decide it. I'll take the Seahawks 23-20, so I'll take the Niners in the points, but I'll take the Seahawks money line, and that's not a pretty good return. Minus 340 odds. I might just avoid that altogether. But Niners +7 feels like a pretty good value. I'd be kind of shocked if in their last season of the year they're entirely blown out. But who knows? The Niners don't have many answers for the Seahawks defense. Last time we saw this game, they were pretty inept. So who knows? Maybe Brock Purdy really shits the bed and is pretty off base. But I think the under is the side to take. We've seen very low scores both times around. I don't think the game will eclipse 45 points total. So give me the Niners and the points +7, but the Seahawks money line 23-20 is my final score. I'd hit the under on the point total. The third game of the week is the Patriots hosting Houston, and I believe the Patriots are a better team, but the Texans have by far the best defense in the NFL. It's not going to be an easy game, and in general, these Texans game are pretty low scoring. So this is kind of the same, or at least very similar prediction I envisioned last week for the Texans to lose to the Steelers, and that didn't happen at all. The Steelers really had no chance. So this one, I don't feel super confident in predicting. The poll also reflects that. It is a pretty close margin, 55-45, in favor of New England. But I agree with the majority. I think the Patriots will find a way. That home field advantage is huge, and I think Drake May is a much better quarterback. So I could see the Texans squeeze out a victory. Gonna be a very tight one, only a 1-point victory in my opinion, and I could see both defenses score. I could see Stroud throw some picks. I could see the Texans force a safety even, and who knows, that could be the difference. But I think a 1-point game will be the deciding factor. So in a low score like this, I would take the Texans and the points. I think they'll find a way to keep it close. Give me that field goal. I think the point total will still go under 40.5 points. I really don't think either team will go over 20 on the game, and I'm going to trust the home field Mike Vrabel-led defense. They did look pretty good, and without Nico Collins, I'm really worried about CJ Stroud and that offense. With Christian Gonzalez locking up either Christian Kirk or Jaden Higgins, they just don't have enough answers, and I trust the run game a lot more for the Patriots. Travion Henderson might not pop off a big run, but I think they'll have higher yards per carry. The Patriots' run defense is no joke. They didn't give an inch to Omarion Hampton and Kimani Vidal last week. They were very inept, and although there were opportunities for them to lose that game, the Chargers just were really uninspiring on offense. I don't think they'll be that bad this week. I don't trust the Texans offense at the end of the day. So could see it go the opposite direction. Absolutely could be a Texans win, but I'll take the Pats. They've had a good season, and last week convinced me they are more legit than I thought. So maybe it's just because I'm bitter, but both of these teams have beaten the Chargers in recent history, so I don't really want to see either team win. I just think the Patriots are legitimately better. So give me the home team. Give me the Patriots 17-16, the Texans +3, the Pats money line, and the under on the point total, less than 40 points is my prediction for this one. There is a minor chance of snow in this game. It's going to be below 40 degrees, and if it does start to snow, I definitely would give the advantage to the home field, New England Patriots. So a close one for sure, but I believe the Patriots will win. But that's the third game in a row where we agree on the outcome. However, we do not go 4 for 4 on the week. I'm going to call upset. I'm going to take the underdog Chicago Bears at home, where weather is also a factor. 18 degrees in Chicago this weekend, not a good environment for the Los Angeles Rams. I know Stafford has played in the cold and he's probably going to be okay, but that doesn't apply to every single player on the team. Everyone from LA having to acclimate to Chicago could be a problem. I think Adams will be okay. I think Puka will be fine, but I just think the defense of the Bears will have a minor advantage in this matchup. So I could see this be an absolute shootout, but the weather I think will just limit it a little bit. And I think that the Rams have showed a lot of weaknesses on defense. They actually let that game be pretty close against the Panthers, and I think that the Chicago Bears game plan will be far more effective, and I don't want to bet against them. In the fourth quarter, they find a way. They play very, very well, and they have a lot of comeback victories. Caleb Williams is really proving the doubters wrong and looked really impressive. I did not believe in him last week. I thought they'd only lose by 1 point, but they found a way to come back, and the Packers really shit the bed. So the Bears are confident. The Bears have the home field, and the vibe in Chicago, I'm sure, is some of the best vibes in a long time. So I think that's going to keep rolling. I'm going to take the Bears to win. Ben Johnson is just finding a way, and the Rams are pretty sloppy. They were pretty vulnerable last week, and the Bears are much better than Carolina, so this will be a closer game when last week shouldn't have been close at all, and I think they'll just make too many errors. There have been more penalties lately for the Rams, and I saw this on TikTok. Somebody pointed it out. I forget who he is, but to simplify it, since the Aiden Ross live stream, since the controversy with Puka, the Rams are averaging over 6.5 penalties per game. However, before that happened, they were averaging 4.5. So that's a 50% increase, basically, in penalties from the LA Rams, and just 10 yards can be the deciding factor between a touchdown and a drive that stalls out. So I think that could rear its ugly head. The Rams have just been a little too sloppy, and I don't trust their defense. I think the fact that they traded away their first-round pick this offseason and gave it to the Falcons is a problem that is just lingering too much. Their defense is missing one playmaker in the secondary, and imagine what the Rams would look like with Nick Emanwari had they drafted him in the first round. The Seahawks absolutely are happy that he was still on the board. If the Rams had taken him, I would trust their defense a little bit more. So I think Caleb will start off slow as he always does and figure it out in the second half. I'm going to trust Ben Johnson's play calling, but this is a true toss-up, can absolutely go either way. So I'll take the home team. This is probably the most exciting, invigorating, competitive game of the weekend, and I think it will go in favor of Chicago. So I'm going against the grain, and I would take the Bears and the points +3.5. -104 is not bad, but if you want a big return, +172, I think is one of the best value bets on the week. It's not that common to be selected, but I think it's possible. I think it will happen. I think the Bears will win, but I envision a bit more of a shootout. I think the over on the point total is the way to go. While weather is a minor factor, I just think both offenses are too good. Both quarterbacks will figure it out. So give me the over. I think a 50-point total in this game, 27-23 in favor of Chicago. Caleb Williams will find a way with a final drive touchdown. I think the Bears will win. I'd take them money line. +172 is a pretty good return on investment. So take them plus the points if you're less inclined. I think this is going to be a very close game within a field goal touchdown, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think the points going to Chicago is definitely the way to bet this game. So I'll take the Bears, a team of destiny this season, and the Rams have just made one too many mistakes too often. So give me Chicago, a close one, but I'll take Caleb Williams over Matthew Stafford. The Super Bowl is also in Los Angeles next year, and in the back of my mind, I kind of feel like the Rams' season is going to be better and more likely to make their way to the Super Bowl next year. I think the Rams will probably put it all together in the second year with Adams, and a year where they're going to have 2 first-round picks. I think the Rams will make it next year, not this season. Back in August, I did pick the Rams to make the Super Bowl. I am taking that back. Even if they win this week, I think ultimately they will not make it that far. I think they'll be losing to the Seahawks next week if they win this game. But let's get a new matchup. I'm rooting for some new games that we haven't seen before. Bears-Seahawks, in my opinion, is a little bit more exciting than a third matchup between the Rams and Seahawks. That'd be fun too, but we haven't seen Caleb versus Darnold. That one, at least, would be more novel than the Rams in division the third time around. So that's my prediction. The Bears win, but honestly, this one can go either way. So those are my picks. This is my new updated bracket. We're taking the Seahawks to advance, the Bears to advance, the Patriots to advance, and the Bills to advance. So we get another rematch in division the third time around between Buffalo and New England. I think the Broncos versus Patriots would also be very fun. We haven't seen that this season, but I don't think it would be as entertaining. I think the game would be far more exciting if we saw Josh Allen in the AFC Championship game getting some revenge on that Week 5 loss to New England. This one would also be in Foxborough. We saw them win the first time around. I think the Bills would find a way, but it's not going to be an easy game. Definitely a close one, and it could go either way. But I would probably take the Bills in that scenario. When it comes to Seahawks versus Bears, I think I'm going to stick to my guns and stick with Seattle. The Bears are a fun story, but it is kind of shocking that they made it this far. Their schedule was kind of a factor. Their division was odd, and they've won a lot of close games. I think it might be the end of the road if they have to go on the road at Seattle. Playing at home with that crowd that's been deprived of playoff success for so long, I think that really helps them. But in Seattle, a tough environment, I'm not sure I fully trust Caleb on the road in that scenario. Hard to trust Darnold with absolute confidence, but I do think the Seahawks would win that game. So ultimately, I am predicting a Bills-Seahawks Super Bowl, and I think that'd be very, very exciting. I would go Josh Allen. I think at this point, that's what I'm rooting to happen the most. Bills-Bears would be really fun. That'd be pretty dope. I have some best ball teams that are still live for that Super Bowl to happen. That'd be pretty lucrative if it did. So I would like that, but ultimately, I think the Seahawks are a better team, and I think they will make the Super Bowl and maybe win. I could see the Seahawks really limit Josh Allen in that. I think the extra week of rest, though, will help Allen a lot, and I'm not going to bet against him. In San Francisco, I think now the scenario I believe will happen will be the Bills winning over the Seahawks. Maybe the Bills get eliminated this week and it doesn't happen either. I was pretty inaccurate last week, but at this point in time, this is what I believe will happen. Bills over Seahawks in the Super Bowl. So that's it for my playoff predictions. Last week, I went 2-4, so who knows how accurate I'll be this week. I gotta be honest, the playoffs, I get a little biased. There's things I personally just want to root for. I want to enjoy the Super Bowl, and there are teams that I believe and convince myself can win, like the Steelers last week, and that just didn't happen. So this is not my forte. Not going to pretend. I just want to be a spectator and enjoy the show. But there are also some narratives I'm rooting for in the coaching search, and perhaps by the time I post this, who knows, maybe there's a coach that already gets hired, and some of these are not going to happen. But there are some dominoes still left to fall. Let me tell you what I think would be most entertaining to happen, what I'm rooting for as an outcome with every coaching vacancy in the NFL. This one has already happened. The first domino has fallen, and John Harbaugh, probably the most attractive candidate of them all, did go to the Giants. There are some weird contract details that have yet to be shaken out, so who knows, the Giants could still botch this, I suppose. But the only thing I think is lingering is whether or not Harbaugh is going to tolerate Joe Shane staying in the building. I think Harbaugh is definitely locked in to the Giants. That's a pretty solid landing spot. They got a good roster and a good defense and a division that's up for grabs. Let's be honest. It usually changes hands, and if not for some injuries, they probably would have been more competitive. They also have a good draft pick. The Giants are a solid landing spot. I understand why Harbaugh wanted to go there, but in my opinion, the second best landing spot is the Ravens, and I think the best option would be Kevin Stefanski. I think for him to move to the Cleveland Browns in division to Baltimore would be a major upgrade. He knows that division very well. He's won against Pittsburgh and even Baltimore in the past, and I think this would be the best situation for Lamar Jackson. Stefanski is known as an excellent run scheme type of coach, and he's made a lot out of a pretty bad scenario in Cleveland. We know that's a terrible team, and he found a way to make the playoffs and also win. He beat the Steelers in the playoffs, and even with Flacco, he made it as well. So Stefanski, I think, deserves a better organization. I think the Ravens will give him a long runway, and I think ultimately he is the best man for that job. I would like to see Kevin Stefanski in Baltimore. But in my opinion, the third best job is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I believe Robert Saleh is the best man for the job. The Steelers give their coach a long runway. They also want to maintain their defensive identity, and I think Robert Saleh is by far the best defensive coach you can find. He had a bad stint in New York with the Jets, but everyone that leaves the Jets always is much better. And what he was able to do this year without Nick Bosa, without Fred Warner, with all the injuries and a lot of young players, his scheme, I think, is the reason why they're still alive. They went 12-5 in large part because of Robert Saleh's defensive game plan. So I think he's deserving of a head coaching job. I think he got a rough shake in New York, and they made a mistake letting him go, at least not to finish the season, and just a weird vibe there. I think he deserves better, and I think he will stay in Pittsburgh for a while. They have a bit of a rebuild, but I think he can make them relevant and similar to what Tomlin was keeping them. They may not fall below 500 if they bring in Saleh. I think that's an organization you want to go to, and Saleh has proven, in my opinion, to be a coach worth trusting. So I think he's one of the more exciting candidates on the market, and given the defensive identity of Pittsburgh, I think he'd be a good fit. Do I know for sure if it would work out? I got no idea, but honestly, I think this is the ideal landing spot for Robert Saleh, who I think will be a coach next year. But in my opinion, the next most attractive landing spot is the Atlanta Falcons, and I think Brian Flores has shown he's also very capable from a defensive standpoint. His scheme was really keeping the Vikings in the mix late in the season. I think their winning record was mostly thanks to the defense. The offense was not contributing very much. So Brian Flores, I think, deserves another shot. Obviously, there were some weird vibes in his exit with Miami, so that's not an option. I'm definitely not expecting him to go back to Miami. But coming out of Minnesota, I think he needs an offense that has talent and a team that just needs a good culture setter to figure things out. It's a very winnable division. If they can win 10 games, they feel like a lock to make the playoffs. But the Falcons always find a way to butcher it. And who knows? I don't really feel like any coach will be able to fix their problems. The Falcons organizationally are very annoying. So they deserve a good coach. They're not a good franchise, though. They got a weird owner situation. And watch them botch this. Watch them hire someone that is really not the right man for the job. But I think Brian Flores is the best candidate remaining after those other three guys have already landed. And I think this would give the Falcons the best chance to make the playoffs. They need a good defense every week, someone that motivates them to show up consistently. And I think Brian Flores is not going to fuck around. I think he'll instill the discipline that team needs. And also, I think he learned from the mistakes in Miami. He's not going to treat his quarterback like shit second time around. I think he will be better this time. But the Falcons still could be dog shit. Even if he's good at his job, the Falcons have a lot of problems. So good luck to Brian Flores. I think Atlanta would be the best landing spot for him. But a scenario I'd actually really root for is for Brian Daboll, an offensive mind, to go to Tennessee and get paired up with Cam Ward. I think they need someone that knows offense in that system. I really think that's really the only way that they can compete in that division. If it's a defensive mind, I think they're going to struggle. I don't think it's the right spot. They got a lot of problems, and I think they need someone that can push some boundaries and come up with a different offensive game plan than the average person. I think Daboll is a good quarterback whisperer. There is a playoff victory under his belt with Daniel Jones, and his resume maybe isn't the most impressive overall, but there are some highlights on there that do give me some optimism for Brian Daboll. I also think he's affordable. I think the Tennessee Titans are not going to be like the highest paying job, and I think they're probably going to have to settle for someone that's not at the top of the list. So I'm hopeful that it's Brian Daboll. I think with a quarterback like Cam Ward, I think he deserves someone that knows offense well enough to get the job done. But is he really the best candidate overall? I wouldn't say that is the case. I wouldn't mind if he's the Chargers offensive coordinator, but I think he's earned the right to remain a head coach. I think he'll go to Tennessee. That's what I would like to see happen, if you ask me. But then in Arizona, this is a tough job to really find someone that wants to go there. But I think the best case scenario is that they get someone offensive that also hurts a division opponent. So I'm going to give them Clint Kubiak here. He's the OC for the Seahawks right now. And right now, that's the best team in division. You would definitely like to make them a bit weaker if you can. So I think they need to pivot. Their defensive coach last time around, Jonathan Gannon, was not the right answer. And I think they need a culture setter, someone that knows offense and has a dynamic scheme. I think if they go defense, they're going to really not have a chance to compete. So stay in division, limit the Seahawks, and hope that you have the right name that is up and coming on that correct side of the ball. You want someone offensive most of the time, and there aren't that many good offensive minds in general. So Clint Kubiak to the Arizona Cardinals. I wouldn't pick them to win the division, but at least it might give them a better shot at catching the Seahawks. Next up, though, the only thing that makes this job attractive is the number one overall pick, and with the Tom Brady connection, let's root for a massive dumpster fire. I want to see this team crash and burn. If they get the number one overall pick, is a division that I root for their rival. I don't want to see them be good, and I really don't think they can hire anyone and be good. So let's give you the most exciting, entertaining scenario. Bill Belichick, hired by Tom Brady, coming back to the Raiders. It's not going to go well. Jordan Hudson is probably the most attractive aspect of this coaching decision. But similar to Pete Carroll, give them a coach with a good resume, an older guy that's ready to check out, and in Vegas, he'll be very distracted. This is not going to go well, but I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be funny and hilarious. I think it'd be typical Raiders. They're not going to make the right decision, and I also don't think that there's that many people that want to go to Las Vegas. I know they get Fernando Mendoza, but like, really? You want to go to the Raiders in the same division with Andy Reid and Mahomes? I know they weren't great last year, but they're still a tough team to beat. The Broncos are just the 1 seed, and their cap space is going to get much better. The Chargers are also the second highest cap space team this offseason. The Chargers are also going to improve, and there's really no chance in hell, even with the number one overall pick, that you win this division in year one. So let's root for a fun story. This one would be kind of hilarious. Bill Belichick returns to the NFL, coaches the Raiders, and they get the number one pick for the second year in a row next year. I think he's going to go one and done. I don't think he's going to leave UNC, but this is what I'm rooting for. This is what I would love to see happen. Will it happen? I doubt it. There's a chance they pull someone up from the college coaching tree, and maybe it's Kurt Cignetti, but I really doubt it. I would like to see Belichick in Las Vegas. But in Cleveland, this is absolutely the scenario I want to happen. There is really no coach that I think wants to go to Cleveland, and why not just bring up prime time Deion Sanders? I think that's one of the reasons in the back of every team's mind why no one drafted Shador. Obviously, the character concerns had him fall to the 5th round. But I think in rounds 3 and 4, there were some teams that considered it, and the coach was like, if I bring this guy in, I'm losing my job. Look what happened to Kevin Stefanski, won the coach of the year just 2 years ago, and already out the door in the first year with Shador. So let's reunite him with his college coach, his dad, who is probably going to fall off dramatically in college pretty fast. Without Travis Hunter, they weren't as good last year, and I think this would be the most exciting scenario you can you can imagine. So give me Deion Sanders in Cleveland coaching his son. That is definitely the ideal outcome I am rooting for. Will it happen? Probably not. Probably not for at least a year or so. But let's give Coach Prime to the Browns. I would love to see it happen. The Browns need some headlines, and this would absolutely give them a lot of attention. So a division that was up for grabs last year, who knows? The Browns could be competitive with Deion Sanders. But in my opinion, the worst job on the market is the Dolphins. Their cap situation is terrible. Their quarterback situation is gross. And ultimately, I don't think they can really compete in that division. They get the Jets twice a year, but that's the only silver lining. And against the Patriots and the Bills, there's no chance they can catch them. So give them a coach that's a little uninspiring, someone that you're going to have to settle for. Arthur Smith is my candidate. While it's not exciting, I don't think you'd be excited to have him as your offensive coordinator elsewhere, and I would like to see a different coaching candidate go somewhere else. So this one, not excited about it, but with Mike Tomlin leaving the Steelers, I think he's going to take a year off and go to television, and I think Arthur Smith will be looking for another job, and I could see the Dolphins just get desperate and give it to him just because he has had head coaching experience in the past. But will they be successful with him? No. I think whoever they hire, the Dolphins, are going to be bad no matter what. So let's not ruin somebody else that's more exciting, not ruin their job opportunities. If you go to Miami, I think off of this job, you're not going to get a head coaching stint after this. So let's give them Arthur Smith. I could see it go somewhere else, but really the Dolphins, I think, are the worst job, in my opinion. At least there's some excitement with teams like the Browns or even the Cardinals a little more. The Cardinals have a good defense. They drafted pretty well last year. And who knows, they're just a quarterback away. But even the Raiders, I think with the number 1 overall pick, are more attractive than the Dolphins. I don't think the Dolphins are a good job at all. Bad ownership, bad cap, and a rough situation altogether. So let's give them Arthur Smith. Not exciting, but someone I think could make some headlines in this coaching carousel this year. If anything, the Eagles' offensive coordinator job is far more exciting, and I'm going to give that to Mike McDaniel. I think Mike McDaniel needs to go to a team that is ready to compete, and I think some of the better head coaching opportunities are going to be taken, and who knows, maybe some of those teams that went with a defensive guy, like I mentioned, are going to go offensive and maybe look to Mike McDaniel. Maybe the Ravens do decide that that's the answer for them. But personally, I think Mike McDaniel would be better served to go and be an offensive coordinator for 1 year and then be one of the top candidates next season for some better job opportunities that might open up. So I think the Eagles are going to give him a blank check. I think he's probably the most attractive offensive coordinator candidate, best offensive mind you can find. And I think he needs to distance himself a little bit from Kyle Shanahan. There's a world where he goes back to the Niners just to take a break and recoup. He's getting paid still by the Dolphins, so he can do whatever he wants. But I think the Eagles is probably the most attractive, best scenario. And there's also a chance you take the job away from Nick Sirianni. I wouldn't guarantee it. Odds are they fire the entire house if it goes poorly. But I think going to the Eagles is the best job opportunity for Mike McDaniel that is not a head coaching job. I could also see him go to Arizona and also go up against Shanahan, his former mentor, in that division. That's also an interesting spot. I would love to see him in LA with the Chargers. I think they should really try to get him in the building. But I think he wants to be a head coach, and I think the Eagles job is a little bit more exciting. You got Saquon there, maybe not a better quarterback, but someone who has more playoff success than Herbert and the Chargers. And the Eagles are definitely not a bad job. So let's give it Mike McDaniel to the Eagles. And the last coaching opportunity is the Chargers OC job. And I would love to see them pry away Cliff Kingsbury from the Commanders. Will it happen? I have no idea. Odds are he stays where he is. But the Commanders have an aging roster, especially on defense. They have a rough cap situation. And I feel like they're not really built to be better next season. Obviously, Jaden Daniels is a good quarterback, and I don't really think he wants to leave, but who knows, a bigger check can always entice you. And I also think the Chargers have a better situation entering this year than the Commanders do. I think if he is going to change where he's working, I would love to see him with the Chargers. There's also some reports I've read in the past that Kingsbury got a bit burnt out from coaching with the Cardinals, and when he went to college, he didn't want to be a head coach. He just wanted to call plays. And then same thing with the Commanders. He didn't care about being the head coach. He just wanted to call plays. So that's definitely a scenario that would be ideal for him in LA with the Chargers. Behind Jim Harbaugh, he would have a runway. I think he'd have a lot of trust in that building, and I think he would be able to stay there for a long time. If he really doesn't want to be a head coach anytime soon, I think it's more likely they can hold on to him for a couple, if not 3 years, as opposed to Mike McDaniel. If they bring in Mike McDaniel, it's more of just a 1-year stint. I would assume he would move on after 1 year. So personally, I'd like some consistency, and I think Kingsbury is at the point of his life where he is fine staying just a play caller, and I think this would be an awesome pairing between Herbert and Kingsbury. I'd be fine with McDaniel. I'd be fine with any good offensive coordinator. I'd be pissed with Arthur Smith, but Kingsbury would have me inspired as a Charger fan. So this is my wish list. Will it happen? I got no idea, but this is what I want to happen. And then the last person I'm going to mention, the honorable mention that did not come up, but I think could be a coach, is Mike McCarthy. The honorable mention that could go anywhere, more likely goes to somewhere like Miami or Las Vegas. I think he might come back, and given his success with the Cowboys, 3 straight years at 12-5 before missing the playoffs when Dak went down, I think McCarthy has earned some credibility. He won a Super Bowl with the Packers, and I doubt he can do it again, but I do think this is a weak coaching cycle, and if you don't get your hands on some of the best defensive coordinators, there's a chance that the offensive coordinators that are on the market just want to go to a team where they have a shot to compete in the playoffs and get a better job next season. So give me Mike McCarthy as the next best option. There's a chance he remains out of the league, but if you tell me he goes to the Raiders or the Dolphins, I wouldn't be shocked at all. So that's it for my coaching wish list, and that's it for this video. I hope you enjoy the weekend games, and if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content. A reminder, new customers on Underdog using promo code BLUNT get $75 free in bonus cash after you spend your first $5. The link is in the description, and I will see you next week. My name is Adam Riancho, and thank you for watching. Nice and blunt.